No love from my father. No warmth from my stepmother. Forced to marry in place of my younger brother. And my groom? A cold, dangerous man with a disability. Yep, that's my current situation thanks to transmigrating into a novel. In the book, the original Julian Gray was nothing more than cannon fodder. He was sent to marry Lucian Blackwell, the disabled and fearsome uncle of the male lead Ethan Blackwell, and the story's main villain. Betrayed by his family, mocked and belittled by the Blackwell family, and completely neglected by his cold husband, the original Julian Gray's already fragile heart twisted beyond repair. He spiraled into darkness. Desperate for affection, he tried seducing Ethan Blackwell, completely ignoring the fact that he was trying to break apart the main couple. But his tricks were clumsy. Every plan failed miserably. After countless warnings from Lucian Blackwell and the rest of the Blackwell family, he still wouldn't stop. In the end, he was kicked out, left to die in misery. As for Lucian Blackwell, despite being in a wheelchair, he was sharp, ruthless, and terrifyingly competent. He had already taken control of most of the Blackwell family business and was their de facto leader. Of course, that power came with enemies. His two older brothers and their sons were all waiting for a chance to drag him down. Lucian Blackwell was the most dangerous man in the entire story. Unpredictable, vicious, and brilliant. The strongest character, until the author decided to nerf him in the final act by randomly killing him off in a car accident, handing the family empire over to the male lead. And so the story ends with the main couple living happily ever after. Now, I've somehow become that Julian Gray. Same name, same face, same tragic fate. Today, I arrived at the Blackwell family's main residence, bags in hand, to move in and bond with my new husband. The mansion is absurdly massive, lavishly decorated, so beautiful it almost made me forget I'm basically walking into a lion's den. Because moving in here, that's where the tragedy begins. On the surface, the Blackwell family seems harmonious, but behind closed doors, it's full of scheming and backstabbing. Lucian Blackwell's brothers are just waiting for him to slip up so they can take him down. But since Lucian Blackwell is too hard to beat head-on, they decided to target his sexuality instead. They dusted off the old engagement agreement with the Gray family and secretly switched out the intended groom for their unwanted, gloomy eldest son, me. They figured forcing him to marry someone like me would humiliate him. To everyone's surprise, grandfather, Richard Blackwell, agreed. And just like that, I, Julian Gray, the expendable extra, was told to move in early. Unbelievable. Didn't that bargain shopping app say I'm the luckiest person alive? Well, joke's on me. I transmigrated, only to become a tragic side character. Flashback over. I was now standing stiffly in the grand Blackwell family foyer, dragging my suitcase behind me. Someone had opened the door for me earlier, but since then, not a single soul had acknowledged my existence. Everyone just continued going about their business like I was invisible. Not a single glance, not a single hello. As for any actual Blackwell family members, nowhere to be seen. Someone's clearly trying to put me in my place. Was this some sort of silent hazing? A little welcome gift arranged by someone higher up? In front of me, a faint number flickered in the air, almost like it was projected from nowhere. 0%. What the heck is that? My death countdown? I took a deep breath and curled my lips into a cold, insincere smile, like one of those fake Nike logos. You know the one. They've clearly underestimated me. If I'm destined to die in this story anyway, then guess what? No one who pisses me off is getting away unscathed. With that noble cause in mind, I squared my shoulders and strutted forward like I owned the place. My eyes swept across the silent room. Then, with the swagger of a regional manager on a surprise inspection, I raised my hand and waved at the staff. "Good work, everyone. Good work," I called out cheerfully. "Let's pause whatever you're doing for a moment. I have a few words." Some people completely ignored me. Others paused for a second, but still kept doing their thing. Rude. Was I in a room full of NPCs? I cleared my throat. "Hello? Transfer me to a real person, please?" Click-clack. The sharp rhythm of high heels echoed on the marble floor. Someone was approaching. A woman entered, dressed to the nines, makeup flawless, with that unmistakable aura of old money and polished disdain. She looked to be in her 40s and had a posture that screamed, "I own this house and the air you breathe." She gave me a single glance. nostrils practically pointed at the ceiling, then finally spoke, voice dripping with forced civility. "And who might you be? A new servant starting today?" She squinted again, then suddenly widened her eyes in mock surprise. "Oh, wait. Don't tell me. You're Julian Gray?" Her face was a whole performance, like she couldn't believe someone like me could possibly be marrying into the Blackwell family. I stared at her in silence, patiently watching her finish her act. Then, with zero emotion, I delivered my counterattack. "Are you the Blackwell family's head housekeeper?" Pause. Then I added, with a deadpan smile, "Auntie?" Her face twisted like she'd just swallowed a lemon whole. "Julian Gray!" She practically hissed my name through gritted teeth. Turns out the auntie wasn't just any random woman. She was Lucien Blackwell's sister-in-law, the wife of his eldest brother, Philip Blackwell. Name? Catherine Chen. Reputation? Nasty. Sharp-tongued. The type who could pick a fight with a mirror and still win. She looked like she was about to explode and screech at me, until an aged but firm voice finally echoed through the hall. Enough. Grandfather Richard Blackwell had arrived. With just a few words, he shut Catherine up cold and instructed someone to escort me to Lucien Blackwell's room. The villain wasn't home yet. He was still at work. I sat down on the plush sofa, gazing at the elegant decor, and began mentally going through my enemies list based on the book's plot. Let's see. Philip Blackwell and his family. His loudmouth wife Catherine and their arrogant, dim-witted son, Chase. Andrew Blackwell, the second brother, and his household. Polite on the outside, but his wife Lillian is sharp and scheming. Their son Ethan Blackwell, the actual male lead, is capable and charming, which makes him dangerous. Then there's the Gray family, aka my family. A trio of cold-hearted jerks who treated me like a tool and nothing more. And finally, Lucien Blackwell, the big boss villain. Ruthless, vengeful, cunning to the bone, best not to make an enemy out of him. In fact, given our situation, we're kind of on the same side. If I don't go poking the bear, maybe, just maybe, I can live comfortably for a while. For now, I should behave. I stretched out on the sofa, slowly drifting into sleep. No idea how much time passed, but I was abruptly jolted awake by the sound of the door opening. Someone had entered the room, glided in. He was stunning, like devastatingly handsome, the kind of man who made you feel oddly safe just by existing. He had that classic cold CEO look, broad shoulders, crisp suit, just enough chest muscle straining against his shirt to make you wonder what else was under there. Even sitting in a wheelchair, the man exuded dominance and danger, like a king returning from battle. Lucien Blackwell. In the flesh. I blinked. I had lived for over 20 years and never seen a man this good-looking. My heart thumped against my ribs like a deer trying to escape a cage. Then the wheelchair hummed as he steered it into the room. His voice, low, deep, and magnetic, cut through the air. "You're Julian Gray?" I sat up, smiled sweetly, and said, "Hi, husband." Lucien froze for half a second, as if trying to process what he just heard, then quickly composed himself. "Be serious. We're not married yet." "True," I nodded. "Then, future husband." He sighed, rubbing his temples like I was already giving him a headache. "Come to my study." In the study, Lucien didn't bother with pleasantries. He handed me a folder. Inside, a marriage contract. I skimmed it. The terms were straightforward: an agreement to marry for 2 years, no interference in each other's lives, and a clean divorce afterward. During marriage, we'd remain loyal to one another. No messing around. After the split, he'd compensate me generously. Basically the same deal the original Julian Gray got in the novel. I looked up, just as a number floated in the air. 5%. Huh? Still 95% of my life bar left? Neat. Lucien's voice interrupted my thoughts. "This is just a draft. My assistant will polish the details later. If you have any requests, you may propose them. If they're reasonable, I'll consider." I tapped my chin, thinking, "I do have one question, if you don't mind me asking. Go ahead." I gave him my most innocent look. "Honey," I glanced subtly at his lower body. "Can your little bird still fly?" A long, very awkward silence followed. At least 2 minutes. The temperature in the room dropped a few degrees. Lucien's obsidian eyes glinted with something dangerous. His hand, resting calmly on his knee, twitched slightly, and the veins on the back of it bulged. My heart skipped a beat. Oh no. Is it broken? Just as I was about to backpedal and offer some sympathy, he finally spoke. cool and composed. Remove the word little. I blinked. So, Big Bird? There's no problem in that department, he said coolly. But, wait, I cut him off, suddenly excited. Does that mean we can do it 3 times a week, or 4? Or, maybe I should test the waters first? I paused, realizing something dreadful. What if Lucien's technique sucks? That would be tragic. Better to try once before committing. I'm not going to touch you. Lucien's calm voice shattered my hopeful thoughts. We don't have feelings for each other, he continued. So naturally, we won't be doing that kind of thing. What? Really? I slumped. But I'm willing to put in the effort. He rejected me flatly. No hesitation. Ugh. Great. All that time single before transmigrating, and now that I've got a husband, I still can't catch a break. Julian Gray, you truly live a cursed life. Half an hour later, I went downstairs with Lucien Blackwell to join the family for dinner. The Blackwells had one bizarre, sacred tradition. Every Saturday night, the entire family must eat together. No exceptions. As I sat at the long dining table, I casually glanced around, mentally assigning names to the familiar faces from the book. There he was, Ethan Blackwell, the golden boy of the story. Handsome in that clean-cut, future CEO way, a typical male lead. But let's be real, next to my husband, he's barely mid-tier. Suddenly, a middle-aged man at the head of the table looked up and addressed me with a warm tone. It was Lucien's father, Richard Blackwell. Julian, you'll be living here at the estate for the time being. Use the opportunity to grow closer to Lucien, he said kindly. If you feel uncomfortable with anything, don't hesitate to let Lucien know. I smiled and nodded. Thank you, Father. Lucien had already briefed me about this. In front of his father, we're supposed to act like a peaceful, happily married couple, even if it's all smoke and mirrors. Eventually, Richard Blackwell left the table. As soon as the elder presence was gone, I let out a sigh of relief. All right, the mask can come off now. Now I could have a little fun. Across the table, Lucien's smug little nephew had already grunted and scoffed at me at least 10 times. He had that "I'm too good to talk to you" energy, like speaking to me might drop his IQ. And Catherine Chen, his mother, was practically rolling her eyes out of her skull at everything I did. I gently set down my chopsticks and tilted my head with a sweet smile. Chase, do you remember me? I asked politely. We met when we were kids, right? Chase blinked, confused. What? Before he could process that, I turned to Catherine with a deliberately thoughtful look. Oh, by the way, Catherine, are you an actress? She narrowed her eyes suspiciously. What? I was just wondering, did you recently land a role playing a ghost woman or something? You've been rehearsing all evening, after all. The constant eye-rolling. So convincing. Turns out, the Blackwell family didn't prepare a separate room for me. Translation, I'd be sharing a room with Lucien Blackwell. Apparently, this brilliant setup was all thanks to his father, Richard Blackwell. Great. Just great. Now it was late at night, and the atmosphere in the room was awkward, to say the least. Lucien sat across from me, eyes cool and unreadable, brows slightly furrowed. Clearly not thrilled. Well, someone had to break the silence. I cleared my throat and gave him my most charming smile. Honey, it's late. Should we get some sleep? You're sleeping on the couch, he said flatly, his voice as cold as the AC. I clutched my chest like he'd stabbed me. Darling, how could you? I'm your dazzling, delicate little husband. Recently bullied and emotionally fragile. And you want me to sleep on that tiny thing? Lucien twitched. Just a little. His brow ticked like I'd gotten under his skin. After a long pause, he actually compromised. Fine. But behave. If I catch you doing anything weird while sleeping, this will be your last time on the bed. Then he got up and walked into the bathroom like this was all beneath him. Victory. I stretched out on the soft bed, sighing in pure satisfaction. Once Lucien finished his shower, I took mine. When I came out, I noticed he'd laid out 2 separate blankets on the bed. Sharing the bed, but not the covers. His final line of defense. Once we were both under the covers, separately of course, I turned toward him and asked sweetly, So, honey, what was your first impression of me? What do you think I'm like? Lucien paused for a few seconds. You're overly familiar. What? I blinked. Shouldn't you say I'm sincere? Honest? Reliable? Don't see it. Well, now that I've told you, maybe you'll change your mind. He didn't respond. I rolled over slightly, eyes open in the dark, trying to read his face. But it was too shadowed to tell if he was asleep, or just ignoring me. A few moments passed. Then I piped up again. Hey, Lucien, if someone in your family bullies me, I can fight back, right? Do whatever you want. Oh, and will you help me? Depends. Humph. Cold-hearted tyrant. I pursed my lips, still feeling chatty. Well then, Julian, he said, voice heavy with exhaustion, shut up and sleep. I sighed, whispering one last time, okay. After that family dinner, I barely saw Catherine or her lovely son Chase for the next few days. Actually, aside from Lucien, the rest of the Blackwell clan seemed to be in hiding too. Not that I was complaining. 3 days later, Lucien finally called me into the study. The infamous post-marriage agreement he'd mentioned? It was ready. I stepped in to find not just Lucien, but also his assistant waiting beside him, suited up like this was a board meeting. Lucien handed me the contract. I started flipping through the pages, line by line. The whole thing radiated one message. Fake marriage. Keep it clean. Zero emotions. Geez, even the wording felt cold enough to give me frostbite. I glanced up at the man sitting across from me, all proper and impassive in his crisp shirt, like the very picture of noble indifference. I pouted internally. Excuse me, sir? Marrying me should be the highlight of your year. I'm charming, adorable, and come with great hair. Shouldn't this be the beginning of a bittersweet drama full of slow-burn tension and longing glances? But no, he really went with business contract energy. I wrinkled my nose, then gave him a dramatic bow with both hands clasped. Forgive my lowly self for daring to disturb your grace. If I ever offend you in the future, I hope you will show mercy and let me live to see the next episode. I wasn't planning to follow the original storyline and cause unnecessary conflict, but hey, a little insurance never hurt anyone. Lucien, as usual, gave no verbal reaction. Just pinched the bridge of his nose, like I was a headache he didn't remember inviting. I sighed and kept reading. Then he said, in his usual chilly tone, I'll also transfer a monthly living allowance to you. Name the amount. Wait, what? My ears perked up. Was this a salary, a job that came with housing, food, and pay? Sign me up. Immediately, I let my expression crumble, swiping at the corners of my eyes with a non-existent tear. Darling, you know my tragic background. Neglected by my father, unloved by my stepmother. Even after coming to the Blackwells, I'm isolated, bullied, looked down upon. I've come to accept it. I've locked away my heart. There's only one thing I trust now. Money. Cold, reliable money. It's my only armor in this cruel world. A man like me isn't meant for love. I'm only meant for an endless stream of soul-crushing cash. All right, Lucien cut me off. Just tell me the number. I straightened up instantly and gave him my best serious face. Back in college, I survived on about $1,500 a month. So now, aiming high, I want $5,000 a month, I declared boldly. Lucien stared at me in silence for a few seconds, and then the corner of his lips twitched. Was that a smile? It vanished before I could be sure. He turned to his assistant. Make it $500,000 a month. Understood, Mr. Blackwell. I nearly fell over. Did I just hallucinate? This was the real tycoon energy. Throwing money like confetti. Rich and ridiculously cool. Forget what I said earlier. This contract? Absolute gold. I'd frame it if I could. My eyes welled up again, but this time with genuine joy. Lucien, you're the most magnificent man I've ever met. He didn't respond. Instead, he looked at the assistant and said, Schedule the pre-marriage medical checkup. Include a psychological evaluation. The assistant nodded like an emotionless NPC. Yes, Mr. Blackwell. Wait a second. Excuse me? Life in the Blackwell household? Honestly, not bad at all. Aside from occasionally dealing with the ever-disdainful Catherine and her miniature clone Chase, my days were surprisingly peaceful. Before I transmigrated, I was already a certified homebody. Now, suddenly dropped into a mansion with endless food, space, and zero bills? I was living my dream. If I got a craving for something, no problem. I had a solution. Summon husband. Hubby, beep, paging husband. Please respond. 10 minutes later, the reply came. Transfer me to a real person. What do you want now? Lucien's cold reply popped up. I chuckled and finally revealed my true goal. I'm craving a cheese foam green tea from Mixu. Large, light ice, normal sugar, with those popping boba balls. Pretty please. Bring one home for me? Moi. The reply came quick. Fine. Relieved, I happily switched back to my game and resumed fighting pixel monsters. You see, the Blackwell estate might be luxurious, but it had one major flaw. No outside delivery allowed. which meant I, a snack enthusiast with zero self-control, had to rely on Lucien Blackwell, the devilishly rich and intimidating CEO, as my personal delivery guy. In the past week alone, I'd roped him into grabbing takeout for me 5 times. The first time I messaged him, I didn't even expect a response. But lo and behold, not only did he reply, he even had his assistant, Mr. Jang, hand-deliver a piping hot milk tea when he got home. From that moment on, I knew. Lucien Blackwell might be cold-faced, but deep down, he was a doting, indulgent tycoon. Definitely husband material. Tonight was different, though. Instead of his assistant passing me the goods, Lucien wheeled up to me himself, deadpan as ever, holding out the Mixu tea like he was handing me a court summons. Seeing him like this, stern expression, designer suit, handing me boba, it was such a dramatic contrast I almost burst out laughing. "Thank you, hubby," I beamed as I skipped over to him. "Want to take the first sip? I'll let you." I was just being polite, really. But to my shock, Lucien actually pulled the cup back, popped in the straw, and took a long sip, almost half the drink. I stared at him in silent betrayal. Then, like nothing had happened, he handed it to me. "Here." I took the half-empty cup with a stiff smile. Okay, I take back what I said about him being generous. That man definitely had a grudge about all my snack orders. But did that mean I'd stop asking? Absolutely not. I fear nothing. I'll do it again. I took a sip and then grinned, eyes twinkling. "Lucien, were you just trying to sneak an indirect kiss with me?" I teased, fluttering my lashes in the most exaggerated, ugly way possible. "You naughty thing?" Lucien turned his head sharply, expression unreadable. I could practically hear the internal nope, nope, nope echoing in his brain. Oh, he was regretting marrying me. Too late. No refunds, Mr. CEO. Apparently, someone was jealous of my carefree, food-filled, heaven-on-earth lifestyle, because tonight, Chase decided to start something again. We were all sitting at the dinner table, the usual silent tension hanging thick in the air, when Chase suddenly scoffed and slammed his chopsticks down. "Julian," he said with that annoyingly self-righteous tone, "you've been in our house for a week now, and all I've seen you do is eat, drink, and laze around. Let's be honest, you're only here for my uncle's money." He leaned forward like he was exposing some great conspiracy. "You're just a gold digger." I paused mid-bite, lifted my head, and gave him a bright smile. "Oh, nephew," I said sweetly, "you really get me." I even held up my chopsticks like a mic. I mean, if I'm not digging for gold, what should I dig for? Chase looked appalled, then whipped his head toward Lucien. "Uncle, did you hear that?" Lucien, who was calmly sipping soup, didn't even blink. "I have plenty of money." Chase gawked at him. "But uncle, how can you seriously marry someone like that?" Lucien's voice turned cold. "Show some respect to your uncle's spouse." Oh my gosh. I immediately latched onto that, beaming with fake innocence. Exactly. Chase, how can you be so rude to an elder like me? I'm practically pushing 30. Back in the day, people like you wouldn't even be allowed at the table if they talked to their elders that way. And besides, I added, pointing my chopsticks at him, you're not exactly a role model either. You spend your days partying, drag racing like some Fast and Furious reject, and living with zero ambition. Isn't that a bit hypocritical? Philip, Chase's father and Lucien's eldest brother, finally decided to chime in from his seat. "Chase," he said sternly, "weren't you supposed to be learning at the company with Ethan? You went for 2 days and then disappeared." Lucien added without looking up. Maybe he realized how embarrassing he is. Chase looked scandalized. The spotlight had turned. He tried to recover. "I told you, office work isn't my strength. Everyone has different talents, okay? Just because I'm not like you doesn't mean I'm worthless." I tilted my head, pretending to ponder. "Sure, but it's just a shame your only talent seems to be disappointing everyone equally." Chase glared at me like I'd kicked his puppy. Checkmate. Dinner ended with him sulking and me winning the round, as always. Later that night, I was lounging in bed, phone in hand, half focused on a puzzle game when something flickered above me. That dreaded floating number again. 30%. I froze. Wait, what? Already? What had I even done? Nothing scandalous. No broken rules. Yet somehow my endgame progress bar had jumped from 5% to 30%. Was I speeding toward my doom without realizing it? Nope. I wasn't dealing with that tonight. I made a mental note to ignore that cursed progress bar going forward. Blissful denial was my coping strategy. Lucien came out of the bathroom, freshly showered, hair damp, robe immaculate, and looking like a cover model for some absurdly expensive cologne ad. He maneuvered smoothly into bed with practiced ease. Tonight, though, he kept glancing at me more than usual. I raised an eyebrow. "What is it, hubby? Don't tell me. You've fallen for me?" Lucien didn't even blink. "You're imagining things." But he looked away, which meant I was winning. Feeling inspired, I decided to reward him for standing up for me at dinner. "I want to sing you a song," I said dramatically, resting a hand on my chest. "Guess the title, okay?" He glanced at me, already skeptical. "Here's a hint," I said. "A white balloon hits a black balloon. What happens?" Without missing a beat, Lucien deadpanned. "It explodes." I gasped, delighted. "Wrong. It confesses. The answer is Love Confession Balloon." Lucien stared at me in silence. "That's ridiculous." "I'm starting now," I declared proudly. Then I launched into the song. "Stop." I paused, confused. "Huh? What's wrong?" "Have I wronged you in some way recently?" I blinked. "What? No? Then why are you punishing me like this?" He looked me dead in the eye. "You sound terrible." Wow. Insulted, betrayed, wounded. How dare he? So I plotted revenge. Before bed, I sneakily set an alarm for 3:30 a.m., labeled it Operation Gently Pull Lucien's Blanket Off So He Freezes. Unfortunately, I never woke up to execute my brilliant plan. Somehow, the alarm had been silenced. I suspect foul play. It started with an invitation, or rather a summons. Apparently, I was expected to attend a formal banquet with Lucien Blackwell. Yes, that Lucien, the CEO, my husband, and the man with a wheelchair that costs more than my entire former life. By mid-afternoon, I was already being dragged off for a full styling session. Hair, wardrobe, even skincare. I was plucked, scrubbed, and powdered within an inch of my life. By the time I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Who was that dazzling young man staring back? A lost character from some luxury drama? A male lead side piece with a hidden backstory? I looked like a pop star who accidentally wandered into a Meters Bonway ad shoot. Of course, credit where credit's due. I am ridiculously good-looking. Stick a potato sack on me and I could still walk a runway. The original Julian Gray had always been the unwanted one back in the Gray family. His father dismissed him, and he was rarely allowed out to attend major social events. No wonder he never had the chance to build connections in high society. He was basically a decorative houseplant with abandonment issues. Tonight, Lucien sat in his wheelchair like usual, but instead of maneuvering it himself, his assistant, Mr. Jiang, was pushing it. I assumed it was to enhance Lucien's untouchable aura, because nothing says dominant CEO energy like being too elite to roll your own wheels. Despite what whispers might say behind closed doors, no one dared to disrespect Lucien in public. He was, after all, the true power behind the Blackwell name now. And since I was his fiancé, even I received a few polite nods from the socialites who'd normally step over me. We roamed the venue together for a while. Well, he roamed. I mostly hovered nearby like a decorative handbag. Business partners, old acquaintances, new sharks, everyone wanted to talk to Lucien. I stood there listening to deals go over my head, wondering how many more handshakes I had to survive. When the last man finally walked away, I leaned toward Lucien and asked sweetly, "Tired from all that sitting, hubby? Want to switch? Let me sit in the chair for a bit." Lucien turned his head with a look that clearly said, "Did you seriously just say that out loud?" I rubbed my sore thighs. "Or we could just split up for a bit, go solo?" To my surprise, his expression softened a little, and for once his voice was gentle. "All right, if anything happens, call me." "Got it." With a grin, I fluttered off like a butterfly tasting freedom. But just as I was making a beeline for the dessert table, trouble found me, again. There, standing a few feet away with his little entourage, was Chase. He had the same smirk, same bratty vibe, and a group of equally smug, brain cell deficient friends. He called out from across the room, "Julian, come here." I lifted an eyebrow and casually waved a finger. "No, Chase, you come here." There was a pause. Predictably, his pride lost the battle. Chase sauntered over like he owned the place, arms spread wide as he flopped down on a nearby couch, legs crossed, smirk firmly in place. One of his friends immediately piped up, "Who do you think you are, not greeting young Master Chase properly? Don't you want to stay in the Blackwell family?" I almost clapped. These guys were like walking, talking drama prompts. So diligent. I gave a dry laugh. "Young Master Chase, please. At best, he's a side dish on the family buffet." Actually, that's not fair to side dishes. Some of them are useful. Chase here is just garnish. I turned to Chase, eyes wide with mock concern. Planning a coup, are we? Trying to replace Lucian as the family head? That's treason, dear nephew. One of them spat. You're just a nobody, a freeloading gold digger. Right? Another added. Word is, you don't even have your own car. I gasped dramatically. What? Of course I do. A Rolls-Royce. Hallucination. They scoffed, but I kept going. Honestly, you should be thanking me, I said, because with this face and this mouth, I convinced the great Lucien Blackwell to keep me around. That's talent. Watch your mouth, one guy warned. You don't belong here. Get lost before we make you. They all began yelling over each other like a flock of angry pigeons, a headache in surround sound. Finally, I looked up, calm and cold. So noisy. You all should just go guard the door if you like barking so much. Then, as one tried to interrupt, I pointed at him and added, You too. Make it a couple. That shut them up fast. Chase growled, Julian, listen. If you're smart, you'll know when to back off. I'm warning you. I cut him off smoothly. Back off? What, junior genius? Sit down. That was the final blow. They scattered like roaches after the lights came on. With that drama behind me, I lost my appetite for cake. The party suddenly felt stale. Just then, Mr. Jiang appeared and asked if I'd like to head back with Lucien. Yes, I said instantly. Please. As we were leaving, some old guy blocked my path, face twisted with anger. Julian Gray, you ungrateful. I didn't let him finish. Move, old man. Good dogs don't block doorways. And just like that, I shoved past him. That jerk, that was the original Julian's awful excuse for a father. Not my problem. I all but dove into Lucien's sleek luxury car, finally breathing again as we sped off. Lucien glanced at me from the corner of his eye. Someone gave you trouble? I blinked. Huh? No. Those clowns don't even rank high enough to bother me. But even I could hear the hollow sound of my voice and feel that little sting in my chest. Strange. Why did his concern hit me so hard? I didn't get enough to eat at the banquet. That night, lying in bed, I tossed and turned, wide awake. I counted sheep until my mouth watered. Lucien, I murmured dramatically, barely above a whisper. Do I deserve a bowl of instant noodles? Lucien's voice came calmly from the other side of the bed. Sure. I'll even throw in a sausage. My eyes lit up. Really? Where is it? Open your phone, he said dryly. There's a 24-hour convenience store on the map. Go get it. The hope in my chest immediately deflated. I let out a defeated groan, like some wandering ghost. How could you say that? I'm seriously starving over here. Lucien didn't reply at first. Then, without a word, he sat up and opened his phone, tapping a few things before finally speaking again. Head downstairs, he said. Tell the chef whatever you want. I sat up instantly, eyes sparkling. You're amazing, hubby. A short while later, I was downstairs, happily stuffing my face with whatever my greedy heart desired. Noodles, snacks, dessert, you name it. Fully satisfied, I eventually returned to our room. Lucien still wasn't asleep. A soft bedside lamp was casting a faint glow, and he was still in the same posture I'd left him in, eyes on his phone. Probably working again. Feeling sticky, I made a quick detour into the bathroom for a rinse before crawling into bed. The lights turned off. Lucien lay down beside me. Then, in the dark, he spoke. Those guys who cornered you at the banquet today, do you remember their names? I blinked. Sort of. I gave them nicknames instead. He sounded confused. What? Well, I began, there was ETC, that one who automatically argued with everything I said. Then there was Sewing Machine, constantly comparing people, stitching together nonsense. And Chef, the one who kept tossing blame like a frying pan. Huh. Lucien didn't respond after that. Sleep tugged at me like a warm blanket, and soon I drifted off. That night, I had a nightmare. Several vicious dogs were chasing me, growling and snarling like they wanted to tear me apart. I ran as fast as I could, heart pounding, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake them off. I jolted awake, sweaty, disoriented. My blanket had vanished, probably kicked off during all that flailing. Half asleep and freezing, I instinctively reached for the nearest warm corner and slipped under Lucien's blanket instead. A low, groggy voice murmured beside me. Julian, you. I cracked open one eye. Lucien? Wait, why was he so close? Was I still dreaming? My stomach gave an uncomfortable churn. Guess that midnight feast was a bad idea after all. I whimpered. Lucien, my stomach feels tight. Rub it for me? He didn't answer. Not that it mattered. I was already half asleep again. And then I felt it. A large, warm hand rested gently on my belly. Slowly, carefully, it began to rub small, soothing circles. It was so warm, so comforting, and in that cozy, quiet darkness, I drifted back to sleep with a peaceful smile on my face. I woke up the next morning feeling well rested and refreshed, but something felt off. I glanced down and realized, wait a minute. The blanket covering me wasn't mine. It was Lucian's. So last night, that wasn't a dream? And Lucian Blackwell, the cold-blooded villain of the original story, the man who was supposed to feel nothing but disdain, actually let me share his blanket? He didn't even push me off the bed? What a man. Truly, a titan of patience and restraint. That evening, I was sprawled across the living room couch, casually scrolling through my phone, when a message notification lit up my screen. It was from the bank. Incoming deposit, 500,000, $500,000. From Lucian. My first ever unearned jackpot. I stared at the number, my jaw slowly dropping before stretching into a wide, triumphant grin. Pure, undiluted joy surged through me, and I couldn't help but shout to the heavens. Life's three greatest blessings: promotion, fortune, and... Before I could finish my glorious declaration, the front door opened with a quiet click. Lucian rolled in calmly on his motorized wheelchair, sharp eyes locking on me. I froze. Right. Forgot my sugar daddy was still in the house. My brain scrambled and I immediately broke into a cringe-worthy freestyle rap. Death stop! Oh yeah! Promotion, fortune, babies by the pair. I turned to him with my most ingratiating smile. Hubby, let's work hard together, yeah? Lucian's brows twitched ever so slightly. Work hard to achieve a medical miracle? I blinked. I mean, never say never. He didn't push the joke any further. Instead, he casually tossed something toward me. I caught it reflexively. A car key? I looked up. Hubby, are you hiring me as your chauffeur now? Lucian pressed his lips together, seemingly unsure how to phrase it. It's your car. Wait, mine? The heavens had opened. Fate had smiled. The sugar daddy gods had answered my prayers. What kind of car? I asked, clutching the key like it was made of solid gold. Rolls-Royce, he replied, as if it were no big deal. My soul briefly left my body. Holy, thank you, hubby. Overwhelmed by emotion, I lunged forward, aiming to give him a big, grateful kiss. I thought he'd dodge. He didn't. So, my lips landed squarely on his right cheek. We both froze. Lucian looked stunned, completely caught off guard. For once, his eternally stoic face faltered. No anger, no scolding, no death glare. Was he okay? Still not believing my luck, I leaned in again and gave him a kiss on the other cheek. Then I said sweetly, Thanks, hubby, I love it. I'm taking this car with me to the grave. Lucian exhaled, trying to sound unaffected. Flattery won't get you more. Today's just one car. But I caught the faint blush creeping up his ears. Success. Then it hit me. A sudden, gut-wrenching realization that wiped the smile clean off my face. Lucian noticed. What's wrong? I don't have a driver's license, I whimpered. He stared at me in silence. For a long time. I gave him my best pitiful puppy eyes. And in my heart, I silently added, Hubby, I may not know how to drive, but I'm very good at riding in style. So, we were moving out. When I first heard the news, I was thrilled. Sure, the Blackwell family estate was luxurious, but when the halls were filled with people I'd rather not see, Catherine and her miniature menace Chase in particular, it sort of ruined the vibe. A palace is still a prison if you're forced to live with jerks. So when Lucian said we were leaving, I packed my bags like a contestant on a reality show who just won immunity. I was sitting in the living room, suitcase zipped and ready to go, when young Master Chase, strolled over. His usual smug, cocky attitude was nowhere to be found. Instead, he looked like he'd just swallowed a fly and couldn't spit it out. You happy now, Julian? He muttered, trying to sound threatening, but mostly sounding constipated. My friends got dragged into this mess. I got scolded. It's all because of you. He glared at me, face twisted in reluctant frustration. You little homewrecker. I blinked slowly and sighed. Chase, listen, you're still young. There's hope for you yet. Don't give up on therapy. With that, I slung my backpack over my shoulder and practically skipped out of the mansion. Our new home? A massive modern villa. Sleek design, warm lighting, and space for days. Basically, every inch of it screamed rich but tasteful, which aligned perfectly with my aesthetics. I wandered around like a curious cat, checking out each room, running my fingers across door frames and windowsills. Finally, I picked a bedroom I liked. It was bright, spacious, and had a huge window with a view of the garden. But just as I was setting my things down, Lucien wheeled in behind me. "We'll be sleeping in the master bedroom," he said coolly, not even waiting for me to argue. I blinked. "Wait, we're sharing a room? Again?" There were at least 10 empty rooms in this place. Why squeeze into one? Lucien didn't flinch. My father insisted. I stared at him. He stared right back. I shrugged. "Fine, I guess. It's getting colder anyway. Sharing a bed sounds practical." That night, I got ready for bed and slid under the covers, only to realize something critical. There was only one blanket. I checked the closet. Nothing. I glanced over at Lucien, trying my best not to look gleeful. "Honey, looks like we've only got one comforter tonight. Guess we'll have to share." Secretly, I was thrilled. If I just happened to roll over in my sleep and cop a feel of his abs, would he even notice? Lucien simply nodded. No protests, no suspicious glances. Just, That night I slept better than I had in weeks. So well, in fact, I completely forgot about my master plan to feel up his muscles after he fell asleep. Sometime in the middle of the night, still half asleep, I realized something. There was warmth pressed up against my back. A firm, steady chest, a heartbeat, a presence. Lucien Blackwell, the cold-hearted villain of the original story, was sleeping right behind me. And I felt safe. Safe enough to drift right back into a dreamless sleep. Just when I was enjoying a few blissfully quiet days in our new home, Chase, yes, that drama-loving, tantrum-throwing nephew, decided to grace me with his presence again. Well, not physically. He texted me. "Julian, don't get too full of yourself. I'm telling you, I'm the kind of guy who always gets revenge when I'm wronged." I stared at my phone screen and sighed. This poor child. So dramatic. So grammatically challenged. I typed back, "Then I guess I've got nothing to worry about since I'm flawless." Then added, "Chase, we've barely been apart a few days and already you're blowing up my phone. Be honest, you missed me, didn't you? You little rascal, don't love me too much." That pushed him right over the edge. "Stop making things up. Oh my God, how can someone as narcissistic as you even exist?" I ignored him. Honestly, I wasn't in the mood to argue with a brat whose emotional range hovered between mildly irritated and absolutely unhinged. So I copied and pasted a long, overly poetic wall of text, something I'd seen on a moody teenager's social media post once, and sent it to him, just to mess with his head. It went something like this. "You're special. You're not like other guys I know. You give off this distant, lonely vibe. That push-pull energy. It's intoxicating. It's like there's this invisible shield around you. I want to understand you, but I don't want to break it. You sit there, and I feel like you could shatter at any second. You want intensity, danger, obsession. You crave being consumed, being unraveled." And so on. You get the picture. Satisfied, I locked my phone and tossed it to the side, returning to my book like the elegant menace I am. Hours passed. Honestly, I forgot all about him. Until 3 hours later, when I remembered to check my messages, he'd sent nearly 30 texts. No joke, 30. All full of increasingly dramatic reactions, existential, crisis energy, and... was that one a song lyric? But the last 2 texts? Those were the cherry on top. Okay, fine, I'll admit it, you actually have a few redeeming qualities. And finally, I didn't expect this, but maybe the person who understands me best is you. I leaned back on the couch, smiled to myself, and whispered, hook, line, and emotionally spiraled. Another day. Another victory. Days passed in blissful ease. I'd finally gotten my driver's license, and with Lucien's luxurious Rolls-Royce at my disposal, I was practically gliding through life. Taking the car out for a spin was pure joy. Honestly, the feeling of sitting behind the wheel of something that expensive while blaring music and cruising through the city? Heavenly. One day, on a whim, I decided to go pick Lucien up from work. I parked right outside his office building, rolled down the passenger window like I was starring in a cheesy romance drama, and called out, "Babe, come hop in my passenger seat. Doesn't this give you the rush of youthful rebellion?" He raised an eyebrow, amused. "What kind of rebellion are we talking about?" "Oh, you know," I smirked. "Speed limit's 60, and I'm hitting 59. Fast and Furious, Domestic Edition." Halfway through our drive, we passed by a bustling night market. The smell of grilled skewers and fried buns hit me like a truck. My cravings flared instantly. "I need to refuel," I said seriously. "Blood sugar critical." I pulled over into a nearby parking spot, jumped out, and dashed off into the crowd. A few minutes later, I returned with an armful of snacks and a surprise. "Here you go," I announced, opening the car door and shoving a bouquet of fresh roses into Lucien's hands before sliding into the driver's seat like I owned the road. "For you, my dear husband, in honor of our everlasting, totally passionate marriage." "Moved?" Lucien took the flowers without hesitation. "With your driving? No one dares move." Rude. I handed him some of the snacks. "Here, help me hold these, sweetheart. We'll split them 70-30. I get the 70. And Lucien Blackwell, the cold-hearted CEO everyone feared, actually took the greasy bag of street food from my hands. That night, I lay on our bed staring at the air above me, where the percentage still floated silently. 88%. I frowned. I'd been so wrapped up in my comfortable new life, I'd nearly forgotten I was living inside a novel. I was just a side character, one that didn't end well either. And if the plot was advancing this fast, that meant Lucien's accident wasn't far off either. My chest tightened with anxiety. The truth was, Lucien had been nothing but kind to me. Sure, maybe he didn't love me, not in the romantic sense, but he never treated me badly. He gave me money, a house, a car. He defended me when others tried to humiliate me. And somehow, I started caring about him. Too much. Curse this man. What spell had he cast over me? Feeling suddenly emotional, I turned toward him and whispered, "Lucien, if I die, would you watch a 2-minute ad just to revive me?" Lucien looked at me like I'd grown a second head. 60 seconds should be enough. I doubt even the underworld wants you. "Excuse you," I pouted, then added, a little softer, "but if I'm gone, take care of yourself, okay? Don't miss me too much." He frowned, clearly sensing the seriousness behind my words. "What are you even thinking? As long as I'm here, no one can lay a finger on you." Tears prickled at the corners of my eyes. "Really? You promise?" "How can I be sure?" And then his face came closer. Suddenly, without warning, he cupped the back of my neck and kissed me. No words, just heat. Fierce, possessive, and intoxicating. His lips were nothing like his personality. Soft, warm, completely overwhelming. I froze, lips slightly parted, and he took that as an invitation to deepen the kiss. It was intense. Hot, desperate, and so real. When he finally let me go, I was dizzy and dazed, my fingers brushing over my tingling lips. Was that a lip friendship certification?" Lucien gave the faintest smirk, his eyes unusually gentle. Then, with one fluid motion, he pulled me into his arms and said, "Husband-level certification. Now sleep." After that night, Lucien started holding me in his arms every time we went to bed. It wasn't just that, either. He'd become downright clingy. All kinds of intimate little gestures started happening on a daily basis. And whenever I looked at him suspiciously or questioned the change, he'd always say something like, "We're husbands. What's wrong with being close?" I mean, technically, yeah. According to our original agreement, we were supposed to act like a loving couple in front of others. Maybe we were just too unfamiliar at first, and Lucien was shy about it back then. Now that he was over it, maybe this was just him leaning into the role. So I stopped overthinking it. After all, I was getting plenty of benefits. I'd already copped several feels of those glorious abs I'd been secretly obsessed with. No complaints here. That Saturday, there was a high-end charity auction Lucien wanted to attend. And of course, I went with him. Truthfully, those rare antiques and luxury items weren't really my thing. I mean, sure, they were expensive, but they didn't exactly spark joy. Game skins and online loot boxes had a tighter grip on my soul. Still, going out to mingle and see the world never hurt anyone. When we arrived at the event, I spotted two very familiar faces, Ethan Blackwell and, unfortunately, my darling little sibling Peter. Peter looked excited beyond belief, practically bouncing on Ethan's arm every time a new item came up. And Ethan? Oh, he humored him, lifted his bidding paddle with a little indulgent smile each time. But what really caught my attention was Lucien, because every time Ethan placed a bid, Lucien immediately raised his own, and won. I leaned closer and whispered, "Babe, why are you buying all this stuff?" Lucien's lips barely curved as he answered flatly, "To keep it out of your sight." Wow. Petty, thy name is Lucien Blackwell. Once the auction ended and the crowd started thinning out, I heard Peter calling after me. He darted over, dragging me aside like he was sneaking around. Lucien and Ethan were still behind us, waiting at a polite distance, but watching closely. Peter looked at me, eyes filled with some blend of guilt and calculation. "Julian, Are you still mad at me? Yeah, I replied without hesitation. He flinched, obviously not expecting me to be that direct. Then, trying to salvage the moment, he put on a wounded expression. I know. That whole marriage swap thing, it was our fault. Me, Mom, Dad, we hurt you. But look, things turned out okay, right? Lucian's good to you. Sure, he's got a disability, but come on, he's handsome, powerful, rich. Your relationship seems loving. Isn't it time to let the past go? Maybe it was fate. Maybe we actually helped create a great match. I stared at him, then said calmly, Nope, not buying it. Me and Lucian being happy has nothing to do with the mess you and your parents made. Don't go taking credit for it. It doesn't cancel out what you did. So kindly take your redemption arc and shove it. Peter blinked, pale and stunned. And really, what happened? Did a mule kick you in the head every day growing up? You make nonsense sound so poetic. Get lost, seriously. I turned to leave. And then, I heard it. A sharp metallic creak above me. A sound that didn't belong in an elegant venue like this. Lucian's voice rang out, urgent and panicked. Julian! Move. Adrenaline surged. I bolted a few steps to the side, then, without thinking, dropped into a slide across the marble floor. Dramatic as hell. Crash! The chandelier above where I'd been standing exploded into a shower of crystal and chaos, hitting the floor with a deafening crash. I looked over at Peter, who had barely dodged the edge of it. He was still frozen, eyes wide. See? I said casually, brushing dust off my sleeve. You do too many shady things. Even the ceiling wants justice. Julian! Lucian's voice cut through the noise, sharp with panic. I turned just in time to see my supposedly disabled husband running. Yes, running. Toward me. I blinked. He skidded to a stop beside me and dropped to one knee, scanning me up and down like he couldn't quite believe I was okay. Are you hurt? Tell me if you're hurt. I looked at him, still stunned. You just ran. Lucian Blackwell, the villain of the original story, the cold CEO in a wheelchair, had just sprinted through a ballroom like a man possessed. He didn't answer my question. I just stared, dazed, and mumbled, Is this a medical miracle? The news spread like wildfire by morning. Lucian Blackwell, head of the Blackwell family, could walk again. To the public, his official statement was that his inability to walk stemmed from psychological trauma. And in that one desperate moment, when he saw his beloved husband in danger, his instincts shattered those mental chains. He stood, for love. But what he told me was another story. His legs had healed long ago. I blinked, stunned. Wait, you mean you've been faking it this whole time? Lucian leaned back with a shrug. It was a good way to avoid unnecessary trouble, confuse enemies, and most importantly, his eyes flashed with mischief. It's a lot more comfortable not having to walk around all day. I stared at him, deadpan. You're unbelievable. Still, something inside me soured. I couldn't help the edge in my voice. So you were even acting in front of me, huh? Wow, CEO Blackwell, what a performance. Really deserves an award. Lucian took 2 steps forward and seized my hand, his voice low but unmistakably firm. Call me husband. I yanked my hand back, scoffing. CEO Blackwell. Without missing a beat, he pinched my cheek, just hard enough to make me flinch. I said, Call me husband. I gritted my teeth, refusing to give in. Lucian Blackwell. He didn't say a word, just leaned in, and suddenly his lips were on mine. It wasn't soft. It wasn't tentative. It was intense, commanding. His hand cradling the back of my head as his mouth crashed into mine, heat radiating from every inch of him. My brain stalled, my knees buckled, and just like that, all my protests scattered like dust in the wind. And just as suddenly, a mechanical voice echoed inside my mind like a system alert. Ding, system boot complete. Host, Julian Gray. Target of affection, Lucian Blackwell. Commencing romance protocol. Wait, what the? His affection rating is already at 100%. What? That damned system. So that's what that percentage bar was all this time, Lucian's feelings toward me? I thought it was my death countdown or something. Jesus, I nearly gave myself a heart attack over that stupid thing. And then, another message blinked across my mental screen. Congratulations, mission complete. Host Julian Gray has been confirmed deceased in the original world. Reward granted, permanent survival in this world. The original soul has been reincarnated. You're now free to live as yourself. Thank you for your service. System logging out. Bye-bye. Just like that, the system vanished. Quick in, quick out. So quick, I almost thought I imagined the whole damn thing. But I have to admit, this journey wasn't without its rewards. Lucian Blackwell, cold, ruthless, unpredictable, sharp as a blade. The man who ruled the Blackwell Empire with an iron will and unmatched cunning. In the novel, he was the most powerful figure of them all. And now, he had completely fallen for me. Not just emotionally. No, Lucian Blackwell had willingly crumbled at the hem of my tailored slacks. I threw my hands on my hips and burst out laughing, smug and victorious. Of course, that same night, I paid the price. Lucian pinned me beneath him, his eyes dark with desire. His hot breath danced against my neck as he spoke, his voice low and hoarse. Honestly, 3 or 4 times a week just isn't enough. Before I could even protest, he pressed kiss after kiss along my shoulder blades. My whole body trembled uncontrollably. I bit down on my hand to keep from crying out. Outside, the night deepened, and inside I was lifted, tossed into the clouds, tumbling helplessly atop soft, sugar-spun skies. If I had any regrets, it was only one. I should never have doubted his stamina. My hand reached out weakly. Someone, say something on my behalf. But he caught my wrist midair and kissed the back of it, fiercely, possessively, making my head spin. By the end, I was too exhausted to even think. My eyelids drooped, and I slipped into sleep. In a dreamlike haze, I felt him press a kiss to the corner of my eye. And then softly, so softly, it almost made my heart ache, he whispered, "Good night, dear."